So if there's any questions anybody has about anything, Jack, myself, and Justin will be glad to answer any questions that you have on anything to do with Second Amendment issues. Thank you very much for coming out. Yes, sir.
I'd like to know why it is, at least in the GOP in Maryland, why I can't get a straight answer from Larry Hogan on anything, like 2A Tuesday. I don't know if he came out. I'm told that he didn't come out to meet anybody. Unfortunately, I'm busy working with some crazy stuff right now that I could not take off to be there, but then I see that he goes with a hunting league and does a photo op on Thursday. It's like he wants to distance himself. My problem is with Democrats, they have no problem coming out as being anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment. And I understand the nature of Maryland and that they have the majority in Maryland of people who support it. But with that being said, why is it that as a Republican, or I don't care if you're Libertarian, I don't even care if you're Democrat, because I support the Second Amendment, that you don't stand like you do, or like Jack does, for what you believe in, regardless of what it affects your job. I mean, if I go to work and someone says, I want to do something that's going to harm people, I don't care if they're my boss. I'm not doing it. I'm not listening to it. I'll fight them. I'll get fired. I really don't care.
The gentleman would like to know why it is that the governor doesn't stand up for the Second Amendment, come out and speak to the questions that the citizens have with regards to your right to carry and the other unconstitutional things that we've spoken of today. Is that correct, sir? Okay. Well, I can't speak for what the governor is doing. I can tell you that a couple weeks back, his chief of staff called, asked me to come in to discuss with them Second Amendment policy. I gave him my thoughts on that. I explained that we would rather have somebody fight for the issues than to sit back and say we can't do something. We got that in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., have you ever heard a Democrat stand up and say, well, you know, we can't win, so we'll just get the best we can? That's become the mantra of the Republican Party in D.C. We don't need that locally at the state level. I personally have a problem with the Republican leadership in the Senate, the House, and the leadership of the gun community in not pressing these issues. Again, we're putting party over principle. We're putting politics over people. If you swear an oath, and if you're standing and yelling and screaming at Martin O'Malley for not doing things, then you need to also be standing and screaming and yelling at the governor for not doing those same things. You don't tailor your argument to who's in office. You know, you swear the oath to the Constitution, not to the party that's sitting up there. And so I would ask that the leadership, if you're a member of an organization in the state of Maryland, go to your leadership and ask them, take a position, take a strong position. I was taken aback by the gentleman, and I didn't finish that story. What happened was when he showed me he took out his phone, he showed me, here's the letter I got back from Nick Kipke saying, we've been told don't ask for an extension of 5 years on these. So Joe Valerio walked by not 2 minutes later. He's the chairman of the judiciary. He said, Joe, and the gentleman standing right here, I asked, would you have any problem if we put in a bill that tried to extend for 5 years the licenses for permits to carry and nothing else? Well, I don't know that I'd have a problem with that. Put the bill in, we'll take a look at it. 5 minutes later comes Nick Kipke. Hey, Kipke, and the man standing right here, said, I just talked to Joe Valerio. He said he wouldn't have any problem with our putting in a bill to extend it 5 years. What do you think? He goes, I think we got that bill in. Well, the man standing here with the letter from him saying that we're not going to put the bill in. So I said, well, there you go. You got the chairman. You got Kipke saying he thinks it's in. Go get him. Now, I don't know if they'll go get him, but it's easy if you approach them, ask the question, point them out, call them out, and I think that's what we need to do. I know that the governor wants to do the right thing. He doesn't want to put us in a position, my understanding is, where the Democrats go and say, okay, well, we're going to put you in a worse position. We're going to pass something that's going to hurt you. Well, if you put in the right bill, that's not going to happen. And this is the perfect kind of right bill to just say, extend all licenses 5 years. Then it would cover all licenses, and then you'd be covered. So there are ways to do it. And last year, I wasn't even in the legislature, but I had pre-filed the bill and got the bill passed to get rid of ballistic fingerprinting finally. And we had worked on that for over a decade. And so we were able to finally get the third piece of that out. I can tell you when we started under the Ehrlich administration, I put in the bill to get rid of all the money associated with ballistic fingerprinting. We got rid of it. Next year, I put in the bill to get rid of all the people, got rid of it. Next year, Martin O'Malley was in office. The state trooper leans over in my ear as we're sitting there and goes, Mike, we now believe in ballistic fingerprinting again. Well, they had sold the machine. It didn't work, so they sued the manufacturer. They got $300,000. They got rid of the machine, and yet we were still requiring every firearm, handgun that came into the state of Maryland to be fired twice so that we could have 2 spent shell casings and they could be thrown in a corner. All that did was keep a lot of manufacturers from wanting to send their firearms into the state of Maryland, and we had this huge expense for no reason whatsoever. And there was no reason to think, if you sold a machine because it didn't work, why would you keep the program? Because you didn't want to admit that you had actually knew nothing about firearms.